Hi, I'm Tom Rue of the Kauffman Foundation. I'm on location today at the Big Kansas City Conference here in Hangar 9 of the National Airline Museum. This conference is new to Kansas City, and it's really meant to be a celebration of advancing innovation, entrepreneurship, and building communities. We're demonstrating right here in Kansas City that it's not about building the next Silicon Valley, it's about building the Silicon Prairie. This is Top of Mind.
At this time, please find your seats. Our event is about to begin.
I'm Reagan Carrizales, the community builder for Kansas City for Silicon Prairie News. And Silicon Prairie News was a personal blog really turned full-scale digital media company. And the whole goal since our very first post was to really highlight and support the entrepreneurial and startup community here in the Midwest. So what first started in Omaha, then grew to Des Moines, is now this year we've made it to Kansas City. We're totally excited about being in Kansas City because there is already a really great and rapidly growing startup community here, entrepreneurial community here, and we wanted to be a part of that, be involved in that, but really just raise the visibility and highlight what was going on. Bringing Big Kansas City, or creating a Big Kansas City, it's in line with our other conferences that we do. We call it the Big Series, and it's all about innovation, entrepreneurship. So it's a national conference on innovation and entrepreneurship, but it has a very local feel to it. So our sort of recipe is to bring in national speakers and national co-founders, have them share their stories and their experiences, their challenges, what they've seen as they've been creating their startups and what it's taken them to get there, and then hopefully that inspires and sort of ignites the passion that's already there in all of our sort of local city and regional entrepreneurs. What's also really cool is that I think this opens up, Big Kansas City opens up the city itself and the community itself to a larger national audience. It pulls back that curtain and says, hey, we have a really incredible startup community here. The spirit is great and the community is fantastic. Come take a look. And by the way, we're building great businesses doing it. I've talked to folks here this year at Big Kansas City from Idaho, from Ohio, from Tennessee, and that's very cool. They know something is happening in Kansas City. They want to know what it is. And as Jamie Wong of Viable said yesterday, she goes, there's something great happening here. I cannot wait to see what it is. We already knew it. We're ready to write the next set of stories that are going to come out of Kansas City for Silicon Prairie News over the next year.
Silence has to end. We have to be able to reach out to the people around us and be able to tell them that we are unhappy. We have to be able to reach out to the people to our left and to our right and say, I think I can do this, but I don't know if I can.
My name is Mihal Baldwin, CEO and founder of Graphically. Graphically helps publishers take their content and convert, distribute, and promote it on major marketplaces like Amazon, Apple, Nook, and others. As somebody who believes very strongly in startup communities, the work that my friend Brad Feld and obviously Kauffman and others have done has made it really intriguing for me to see how that is affecting Kansas City itself. I spent time in Boulder for a number of years before moving to California, where I am now, and so I'm always intrigued at how various communities have integrated entrepreneurship into what they're doing. And I've done a lot of travel, and so yeah, I wanted to see what Kansas City was like for entrepreneurs.
In order to build a community, it's important to stay and participate in that community. And what I think is actually the worst thing that happens in local communities, and I built Graphically in Boulder as an example, and then we've now moved to California for multitudes of reasons, but that people build companies in the area and they complain about how there's no support and that they don't support the other people in the region. I'm just going to head now, I'm just going to work. they never stop for a bit and say, you know what, I'm going to take my 20% of my day, instead of hacking, I'm going to go to 3 other entrepreneurs and say, what can I do to help? Or I'm going to get donuts on Saturday and just chat. And that's the biggest negative that happens in the region, is that people don't reach out.
So building a startup community is an interesting situation. There are a couple pieces that are necessary for a startup community to grow. Not only do you need entrepreneurs, but you need people to fund and support those entrepreneurs, and potentially customers for those entrepreneurs to sell their product to. And local always works best. I think that the argument has always been, don't be like Silicon Valley, don't be like New York, be like yourself. But the difficulty in that conversation is nobody knows what they want to be. Right? If you don't have a community, how do you know what it should be to start with? And so the most important thing for a startup community is having a tight-knit, small group of people that are able to start building out that core and that culture that grows out. Just like in a startup. In a startup, you want a couple people to set your culture of the business. You need the same thing to happen within your community.
I'm Ray Hatfield, and I'm a student at Johnson County Community College. I came to Big Kansas City because I wanted to get more involved in the startup community. I work for a local startup right now, and I just really wanted to get more involved and meet some new people. My favorite part is definitely the after parties where all the speakers come and you can really engage with people, and it's really easy to connect. Everyone's willing to listen to your story and wants to help.
Last night I showed up at the party at the incredible Missouri bank, and Caleb came up and he gave me a badge. I don't like badges. We don't need no stinking badges. He gave me the badge, and I looked down at the badge and it said to Honey Jones, and it said, Bowtie Cars. And it hit me. So I'm not here because of the TV shows. I'm not here because of football. I'm not here because of my college. I'm not here because of my high school. I'm not here because of where I'm from. I'm here because I'm just like one of you. We're all creating amazing platforms for people to join together to do brilliant things together. We're all selfless, we're all committed, and we're all passionate about something that's greater than ourselves.
I really think that community is a form of currency in our economy. And what I mean by that is the value of community seems to be elevated. People are understanding how to leverage community, how to extract value from it, and how to collaborate through it.
So one of my first beliefs is don't listen to your parents. It's funny, every time my dad hears about my talks, he's like, I don't like talking about it. That's bad. And I'm like, but it's funny because I think a lot of people starting off, they don't get the support that they want from their parents or their friends or really, anybody. And here's what I learned: it's actually really normal. And what I realized was as a person trying to do something, somebody that they care about, the last thing they want to see is for you to fall down and hurt
My name's
yourself.
Dan Martell. I'm the founder of a company called Clarity.fm. We make it easy for entrepreneurs and business owners to get expert advice over the phone from other successful entrepreneurs.
Pisses me off about the media is they always ask, how do we build the next Silicon Valley? How do we be the next whatever city? And my response has always been, let's stop trying to be the best, the next Silicon Valley, and let's try to be the best Kansas City. Because I think that's the best thing we can all ever do, is just try to figure out what we're great at and be the best at it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So to me, the focus on local is because every local community has a different type of values and characteristics and industry. And I learned this lesson actually in Omaha 2 years ago when I was sitting down with the council and they were talking about, venture capital and different companies doing things. And they said, why would you try to start a social networking site or a photo sharing site in Omaha when there's enough people in the agricultural industry and manufacturing that would love to buy a product if you built it? So, that's when it really hit home for me, especially coming from Canada, that focusing on the assets and the characteristics of your local community and amplifying those is always going to achieve better leverage than trying to be something that you're not.
I have a lot of connections to Kansas City, come to think of it, even though this is my first time really spending time here. One of them is Hallmark. I think Hallmark is just an amazing brand. And I was thinking about their brand. I was thinking about how people actually take a brand, a good Americana brand like Hallmark, for granted because they see them in all of the malls, they see all the cards in Target, it's easy maybe to make fun of it a little bit because of there might be some cheese there, but the reality is, there's a guy named Gordon McKenzie. You guys have heard of Gordon McKenzie, and you've heard of this book, Urban and Giant Hairball. If not, you absolutely need to buy the book. It's on Amazon, it's cheap, you'll read it by the end of the day. It's a gorgeous book, and it actually restored my faith in creativity in the workplace and in large companies. It was when I was at Intuit, I was redesigning TurboTax, and I moved down to San Diego. I moved a friend of mine down to San Diego, and we had this uh-oh moment. It wasn't an aha moment. It was like an uh-oh moment, and it was like, wait a second, are we working on tax software for the rest of our lives? What do we used to do? And it was an interesting moment. That's when I discovered this book. But I mean, the hairball, it's a great metaphor. You probably already read it, but I'm going to go through it again. It's the bureaucracy that companies create through endless rules, policies, procedures, management layers, and practices. Each rule is like a little hair that gets connected or knotted to the other hairs, and the result is a giant hairball. And so Gordon, this book is really all about techniques, not just in design, but anywhere where you're at in a company that requires some level of creativity, and I would argue that that's at every level. But it's basically a series of techniques on how to not get caught in that hairball. Don't try to navigate it, don't try to weave your way in and out of it, just stay out here, and everything will be fine.
I believe that when you're setting out to look and find your passion, it's really hard. You try a lot of things, or you're looking for something, and it's very frustrating because there's nothing out there that has the label passion on it. There's nothing out there that will grab you and say, hey, I'm your passion, don't quit. Nothing will do that for you. What I do believe is that it's very important to have a lot of adventures and a lot of experiences and say yes to a lot of things so that you're able to have context, so that when you find that one thing that you can be singularly great at, you'll feel compelled to do it, and do it more, and do it well, do it right, and bring other people along with you.
My name is Albert Tong. I'm a local iOS developer for One Louder Apps, a homegrown local company right here in downtown Kansas City. And I came for inspiration and just like getting more mentors and just building on my own career path and seeing where I want to go in the future. There's just so much creativity all around this place, and just want to figure out what's my next big step in my career. All the speakers talking about work-life balance and telling us like the subtle stories, a lot of the intricate stories that not a lot of people tell you, and tell it how it is. All the honest stories, all the hard work, the blood and sweat that comes from doing a startup. It's good to hear and get a reality check, and not just hear all this like rah rah rah, because you need a lot more substance behind it.
So the company starts, we actually had customers, we started doing work, and 3 months into it, I run into a wall. What happened was we did work, so essentially I hire all these employees, I buy the hardware, we travel, we do work with clients as a service company. We had companies like Procter & Gamble and Dole Foods as customers, and I thought we were on top of the world. We were doing the work, invoicing, signing contracts, and one day I looked at my bank account and essentially I had no money to make payroll. I learned this lesson that my dad, I would never admit to him in person, my dad always told me about cash flow, and I was like, what's cash flow? You know, I've got revenue and sales, and what happened was in a service company, you essentially work with a client, you invoice, so maybe you work for 30 days, 45 days, you invoice, then they have 30 days to pay you if they decide to be on time. Most times it'll take 60 days. And then in my case, I was working with these US companies that once I got the check in the mail, I go to the bank and they would freeze it for 20 business days. And I was like, this is gonna suck. Like, we're doing good. We have revenue, we have customers, and I can't make payroll. And I was stressing out. And it was that commitment to knowing that the other guys were young. They were going to make it okay. But knowing that Andrew had to feed, a young girl, had a wife, and, and he took a chance on me, I felt committed. And I did what I suggest every entrepreneur do. I picked up the phone and called anybody. And I said, hey man, here's this issue. And one of my advisors, this guy John, gave me some great advice, which I didn't even know existed. He says, why don't you factor the receivables? So there's this industry, which I think they're absolutely brilliant for doing this, because it's quite interesting. There's this industry called factoring, where you can actually get them to buy your invoices, your receivables. You still guarantee them, but they'll essentially take 15% and give you the money today. It's kind of like a business version of payday loan, right? And I got over the hump because I got this guy that bought my receivables. And the guys on my team never knew. And I think that's one thing most entrepreneurs have to do. Essentially, you have to take it for the team. They never need to know how bad it got, because that's not what they signed up for. They look up to you as the leader, and you're supposed to bring that certainty. Even though you're like screaming, let's run into battle, and you know damn well how hard it's going to be, that's not your job to tell them. It's to make sure that they feel confident about what you're about to do.
So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and now I live in Los Angeles. Kind of feel like right at home here in Kansas City. It's sort of exactly in the middle in terms of the weather, the geography. This makes me feel really at home. It combines all of the Midwestern values that I grew up with in Cleveland, Ohio, with all of the amazing technology and innovations and creativity that I'm used to in LA. So Kansas City kind of meets in the middle of my life, of my world.
First of all, it's been an awesome event. So I can't really name something off the top of my head right away, but I think for entrepreneurs that come to the events, I think they can get more out of it by having a list of questions that's been eating away at them, kind of listed out ahead of time, and bring that to all the Q&A sessions that they have here. And then they have a lot of, like I said, a lot of mentors and speakers are very accessible. Bringing these questions, well thought out questions, to these speakers ahead of time, and then you get a lot more feedback right away.
So I'm wondering, as you're scaling the current companies that you're growing, how do you determine between what you could do and what you actually should focus on?
For us, it's very metric driven. So whatever our core growth metric is, we focus on that, and if something is going to make that number go up, we do it. And if it's not, then we don't do it. And if we don't know, we'll weigh them all. What's most probable? So, and a lot of it is guessing at first.
My name is Jamie Wong. I am the co-founder and CEO of Viable.com. Viable is a community marketplace for travel experiences. We are a platform that enables anyone to offer their services as a tour guide, and travelers to come find unique experiences on the site that they wouldn't be able to find anywhere else in the world. I grew up in the Bay Area, I live in the Bay Area, my company is based in San Francisco, and there's nothing magical in the water there that makes you a good entrepreneur, good at technology. It just happens to be where everyone in tech has congregated historically. And so naturally now the hub continues to grow. But there's so many people in technology and in creative work, advertising, and design and other fields that are so critical to the success of a startup in other parts of the world. So it's really, really exciting to see them growing their communities so that every region can be playing to their strength and really capitalizing on what they do best and defining themselves as a community and differentiating themselves as a community so that we can all borrow talent from one another and really leverage each other's strengths to move technology forward at a larger scale.
For instance, for the community here, really anywhere, what are your strengths and idiosyncrasies, and how do you play that collectively to your advantage? And that becomes part of your story, part of your branding, and also a way to really strengthen as a community and include more people. Because again, just as I'm not going to compete with Mark Zuckerberg, no other community should try to compete directly in that way with Silicon Valley, but instead present something different and something better.
Able to see, all the excitement and passion right now around innovation that's happening here, and how many people are here today because they're standing on that ledge about to quit their boring day job and start a company, and all they need is that little push. It's just the most amazing thing to witness.
This young kid, with no advantage to his name, not unlike our namesake and our founder, Mr. K, who did not grow up in a family of privilege, he has embraced entrepreneurship as a way to take his country from what it is as a developing nation, a third world nation, a nation in which the average worker earns $1 a day. $1 per day, if you have a job. But Soel, took on this mantle of, I want to promote entrepreneurship, I want to be that leader in my country. And the sad truth of it is, he's been having a hell of a battle, because the forces that be don't understand this yet. They don't embrace the notion of entrepreneurship as a policy priority, such that he has subsequently been arrested, detained for days. He's disappeared from the streets. He's always been released. He's a slick, fast talker. I think part of the reason why they keep letting him go is they can't quite figure him out. If he really did have nefarious intent, I think they probably figured he'd be a lot, slimier. He's been personally threatened, with his life, his property. And I said to him, Soel, this distresses me to understand that. I mean, look around. What hardship did any of us endure to be here, right? But this is what he's doing. He says to me with the same level of energy that I saw 2 years ago in Dhaka, I'm okay, Mr. Tom, I'm okay. This is going to be good. We're going to transform Bangladesh. So help me understand. What are you thinking? He says it's too important. If my journey ends in pursuit of this, somebody else will pick it up. But we have to continue the progress forward. That is an incredibly humbling experience. It helps me be reaffirmed in the value of the work that we have to do with the foundation, and by extension, the work and commitment you all have to the community that we're all involved in.
The entrepreneurial community, or the startup community, I think has really changed and has been evolving, over the last 12 months to 18 months. Probably you could talk to folks and grab anyone out of this community and talk to them 6 months ago, and they were going to say it's different than even 3 months ago. So I think the energy, it's due to a lot of things. There's been a lot of exciting movement in Kansas City. You have Google Fiber, which has been fantastic. You have all of these sort of co-working spaces pop up. You have Kansas City Startup Village, which has created a lot of momentum. It had the first fiberhood, and so that's received a lot of not only regional but national attention as well. And so, and you also have this community that's starting to grow and become more visible. You have programs like 1 Million Cups at Kaufman, which is not only providing a really a sort of a stable but sustainable place for folks to meet every Wednesday morning. I think it's indicative too when you ask them how many new people are at 1 Million Cups every week. You have close to half the audience saying we're new. So you can see that the people are here. It's a matter of sort of finding them and touching them where they are, trying to get them involved in the way that they want to be involved in the startup community, and just continue to make these connections. So again, I think it's there's a lot of different inputs into why there's so much energy here. Now it's a matter of having this energy. What do we do with it? Like, what's going to happen? What is part two? What are the successful stories that are going to be made?
And we're in it together, because I promise you, if we make the world a better place in places like Bangladesh, the good old US of A will benefit as well.